So we're going to talk about this story not because I want to, but rather because, as we'll get to, the man himself asked for it. I say I don't want to because, despite what some say or assume, I don't enjoy being negative about Star Wars. I am unapologetically, and above being a content creator, a fan. I love Star Wars and I want always for it to be the best it can be. And I don't know, I don't enjoy the perception that I am overly negative, although of course sometimes you gotta call it like it is. Anyway, Temuera Morrison and Daniel Logan recently appeared at Fan Expo. Unfortunately, there doesn't seem to be a video of their panel. However, Collider, and I'll link to their article down in the description, has detailed some of it, including Tem's response to the question of whether he was going to be returning to the Star Wars universe. He puts it simply and says no, before stating, "I think we really have to treasure those moments now. All of you need to send a fax or a letter or an email to those in power that be at Lucasfilm. I'm sure they'd love to hear from everyone. Please give Daniel Logan and Temuera Morrison another chance and put them somewhere." I've got to say, one thing I really love about Temuera is that he's unapologetically a fan of his character. He wants to play Boba Fett, and yes, I'm sure a big part of that is getting Star Wars money, but he's never had anything really negative to say about the fandom. He's just a really pleasant guy, honestly, to have in the universe, and I was very, very excited to see him appear in first The Mandalorian, of course, then The Book of Boba Fett, and in other small roles, of course, after originally appearing in Attack of the Clones. You know, I don't want to be too overly dramatic here because this seems mostly to be something Temuera said with humor, although with a grain of truth. He should be back in the universe. I don't know as much how Daniel Logan will fit in, but Temuera Morrison, and honestly his character, is a victim of Disney and Lucasfilm really not having a plan for what to do with the Mando era, and for overreacting, this is my theory at least, to what was going to be a delay with The Mandalorian Season 3. And you know, I post as much on Twitter, some people said, listen, he doesn't have any right to be the character, or why am I supposed to feel sad for an actor not getting work, or we don't need the character just because he wants the character, and why does a guy just deserve millions of dollars spent to basically fulfill his wish? And I don't know, to me that's not really the case. I do believe Boba Fett is a character who has potential. I was never growing up a Boba diehard. I liked him in Shadows of the Empire. I thought he was fine in the movies, but I definitely didn't fully understand why everyone was so into him. Boba's unique in that he has a connection to the original and prequel trilogies. He has a connection to the Empire and the Underworld. And yes, he's cool with cool technology, and he should be a badass. Obviously, the Book of Boba Fett took him in a little bit of a different direction. Some of that I have issue with, less so than other people, however. For one, I don't mind Boba Fett looking to step away from bounty hunting and establish his own domain. I think, as we sort of saw hinted at in Season 1, there's potential for a really cool look at how he battles against other elements of the underworld. And yeah, he was made a little softer, but I think the show was at least starting to do a good job of explaining how his character made that transition. The events of the Sarlacc changed him, his time spent with the Tuskens and their subsequent slaughter changed him, and really that's not far away from the character he played in Star Wars Legends. Boba Fett was never a pure villain in the same way that many Imperials were. Yes, he was allied with the Imperials, and he certainly was an antagonist of other stories, but for most of his time in Legends, he was profit-driven. And they could have left his character like that, but Boba Fett later on actually went through some really interesting development. He allies with the New Republic and the Galactic Alliance during some events, including the Yuuzhan Vong War, and he's made noticeably softer by his time as Mandalore and his time with his granddaughter, Mir Degev, as he gets older. And yeah, he never becomes a true hero, but even when a villain, and even when at times he was personally aligned with some of the Empire's philosophies, he wasn't evil again in the same way that Palpatine and even Vader was, and that left for some interesting space for his character. Obviously, Star Wars canon jump-started things a bit by making him soft pretty quickly, but we also have a more limited view of who Boba Fett was. We see as a kid, certainly he goes through extreme trauma, but he's not overall bad. Jango seems to be a good father, and after that, he's kind of trying to survive in the galaxy. I have thoughts for what a Book of Boba Fett Season 2, or what another show, probably, featuring Boba Fett could look like, but the reason why this is so frustrating is because, as I hinted at, I honestly think Boba Fett has been screwed over by mixed storytelling. Again, I think the premise of the Book of Boba Fett was fine. I think the way his character was changing was fine, but he essentially had his show wrestled away from him by The Mandalorian. Now, I've stated this theory before. The Mandalorian Season 1 and 2 were just massive, I think, surprise successes. No doubt, Lucasfilm and Disney thought a Star Wars streaming show would do well, but I don't think they were prepared for the heights that Seasons 1 and 2 would take them, and how Grogu really would become such a cultural icon. I think they knew the second season was going to release in late 2020 and that Season 3 wouldn't be ready until 2023, and they're worried about The Mandalorian losing sort of the cultural buy-in, I guess, he developed. So instead of having 2.5 years without anything Mando, they undid what happened in Season 2 and converted the back half of the Book of Boba Fett into The Mandalorian Season 2.5 to, I think, the detriment of both shows. In the end, The Mandalorian Season 3 is much worse, with the characters basically back as they were at the beginning of Season 2, and the Book of Boba Fett certainly is worse without any sort of natural conclusion. Keep in mind as well, the Book of Boba Fett was only 7 episodes. And the thing was, I think Temuera Morrison was the strongest part of that show, while The Mandalorian ended up being the weakest. But despite Season 3 of Mando being about, the reestablishment of the Mandalorian people, Boba Fett isn't present at all. You're telling me they couldn't get Slave 1 to help fight the Empire? He doesn't care what's going on? I don't know. It doesn't make sense to me. It seems too that Temuera has been ignored for the Mandalorian and Grogu film. That wrapped up last year, and Temuera has been, kind of open about not hearing from Lucasfilm. It is possible that he's playing the whole Ewan McGregor. I don't know anything about Kenobi, but I honestly don't think so. So yeah, I guess the point of this video is make a stink online. Temuera has been given some crappy hands and still made a pretty compelling character with the new Boba Fett. Yes, the ages don't work up. Yes, he's been in some poorly directed episodes, but I think he should get another chance. Not only, and actually not at all, because he deserves it personally, although I do think he does, but because I truly believe there's a compelling story to tell there. Those are my thoughts, though. I hope you let me know yours down below.